Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, Happily Ever After, Season 1, I believe. Let's watch.
I really want to stay here because I got used to life here in the States. The worst scenario can happen to me is if I get deported. Hopefully this lawyer can tell me how I can stay without being with Danielle.
Did you love this woman?
I did not get the chance to love her.
Interesting. So we've heard a lot of answers to this question. A lot of people have asked him, did you love her? Do you love her? Which I appreciate the question because it is a curiosity of mine, and I'm guessing of the viewers. And he has said many different responses, and he hadn't said this one yet. Well, he said a version of this, but he said, I hadn't had a chance to love her. You married her. And I think you said you loved her too before you married her. So the whole time you didn't love her. If he wasn't a con artist, what would we hear from him in this moment? He would say something like, well, yeah, in the beginning, I guess I was living this fantasy that we were going to be in love and everything was going to be fine. There wasn't going to be any bumps in the road. And then when I got here, we got some bumps in the road and we started to fight some more and my love started to diminish. That story would lend itself away from the con artist hypothesis. His response of, I never had a chance, implies he never was in love with her, and yet led her on to believe that he was in love with her, knew she was in love with him, got married, vowed under whatever they were vowing under that he was in love with her and wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. At the tell-all, had very shifty responses. I don't think at least of the people that yell, well, I guess there was David, before the 90 days, season 4, there was David and I can't remember her name, but that seemed to be a con artist situation. Who knows? But it certainly had the hallmarks of it. But aside from that, and then of course Williams, that whole thing with Yolanda, that was 100% a con artist situation. But a lot of the other couples, there's accusations of con artistry, but doesn't seem to be actually happening. And I say con artist because you would have to be quite a sort of person to be able to do this sort of thing. Because we only see little snippets, but imagine all of the things you would have to do, all the lies, all of the deception, always knowing the Machiavellian plan of like, okay, I'm going to do this. Phase 1, make her fall in love with me. Phase 2, da-da-da. There's a whole plan set out, that a long con that you play out from the very beginning. That takes a very particular sort of personality, typically. Not always, but typically that involves callousness, lack of empathy, trying to manipulate other people for your own gain, not having any remorse. I can't know that about him, but if he were to be diagnosed by a proper clinician and it was disclosed, I wouldn't be surprised. There's other options here, absolutely. Psychopaths are pretty rare, so and there's a spectrum. Some people are extreme psychopaths, some people are on the spectrum. So I don't know. But I want to be clear, I'm not diagnosing from afar. I never diagnose from afar. If I met him, I'm quite sure I would have a more nuanced picture of him because when I assess people, I get much more detail. But anyway, let's just keep that in mind as we watch.
Because once I came here, big problems started showing up. Big problems. We was fighting against so many things. Why you didn't tell me that you have problems before I come here? Why?
Because I was scared that you would.
Right. So that legitimately was something that Danielle did that was 100% wrong. She lied to him. And if anyone could be accused of being a con artist, she could be in this situation because she essentially conned him into coming to the States, knowingly withholding information that would affect him. And once he was in the States, then he was kind of halfway trapped. Not really. I mean, he certainly could have gone back to Tunisia at this point if he wanted to. So yeah, he's completely in the right to be complaining about this. But his, he did forgive her after this, and on the scale of things, I mean, it was lying, but it wasn't like, other kinds of lies that we would hear, like she is married or she has been cheating on him the whole time. I mean, she didn't disclose about her financial situation, which is wrong. It's an immoral thing to do, to lie by omission. But on the scale of things, I wouldn't say it would be that big of a deal. And his contention is that these kinds of things continued to happen a lot, which is hard to imagine, but could have happened.
Why are you moving to Miami, Florida?
Because I have more opportunities to find a job there more than here.
Complicates issues a little bit, not a great deal, but it does complicate issues. All of these things would bolster her argument that you, from your side, that this was a scam.
Interesting. So his own lawyer is saying, even the details you're telling me, which of course aren't all the details in all likelihood, this is going to bolster her argument that this was a scam. When your own lawyer says, everything you're telling me is pointing towards a strong case for you being guilty.
I know Danielle, she's gonna go crazy for me going down to Miami, especially when she find out that I am going to move with Louisa, but I'm so done with being in like small town here. The lawyer advised me to don't leave Ohio.
Okay, so you hear the way he phrases that. He's like, oh yeah, Danielle, my wife, is going to be so upset that I'm going to move in with this woman in Miami. She's just going to be so upset. But you know what? I'm just done being in this small town. I mean, that is callous. I'm not diagnosing from afar. I want to be clear about that. But I've treated psychopaths before. I've treated people with antisocial personality disorder, what the internet will call sociopaths. They will often not follow the rules. Psychopaths are one of the hallmarks of a psychopath is that they shoot themselves in the foot actually a lot by just not caring about the rules. They do not care about authority. They do not care about rules. They even get somewhat some pleasure of breaking rules when they're imposed with rules. The lawyer, his advocate, just told him, you probably shouldn't leave because if you do leave Ohio, it's going to look bad for you. If you're going to be with another woman, it's going to look bad for you. And there's a risk of INS showing up and arresting you and imprisoning you and deporting you. And that's a big deal. That would scare me. But for him, he is not doing it. And I think he's about to say, I know my lawyer told me to do that, but I don't care. Let's watch.
And to don't be with another woman. But I don't think I have to be stuck in a state because of the immigration.
So I'm not diagnosing, but I will say that for psychopaths, it's classic that they will be told a rule that is set in stone. There's no wiggle room. It's not a gray zone. You're not being told, like, can you please do this? It's like, no, there's a speed limit, and if you break the speed limit, you get a ticket. But the entitlement that psychopaths will have, they will just say, I know they said that. I know he said that immigration. I know that the laws are, but I don't feel like I have to do that. I don't want to do that. That's what psychopaths are like. It's scary. If you are around a psychopath, you will be harmed by them because they will exploit you in all likelihood, or at least they won't care about your feelings. But you will also be sort of sucked into their wake of destruction. So it's just interesting. It's interesting to see this because I don't think y'all have asked me to watch a character like this before. Hey, deserving listeners, as y'all know, I am constantly recommending that people go to therapy. We all need therapy from time to time. Well, one of the options available that is definitely worth checking out is BetterHelp. If you're looking for a therapist, I would give it a try by going to betterhelp.com/Kirk. Make sure you use the promo code Kirk because you get 10% off your first month, and it really helps us out. As you watch these videos, I know many of you have been motivated to find your own therapist, which is great because you deserve it. And I know also that it can be hard to find a good fit, find the right one for you. Well, one of the options available in terms of your shopping is to go to betterhelp.com/Kirk. I've been told you can start communicating with your therapist in under 24 hours. You can message your counselor at any time. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. I've also been told that it's often less expensive than in-person therapy, and you should know that this service is available to clients worldwide. So go to betterhelp.com/Kirk to get 10% off your first month today.
She's gonna go crazy for me going down to Miami, especially when she find out that I am going to move with Luisa. But I'm so done with being in like small town here.
See, what other people who are often accused of being psychopaths, like Big Ed or these other kinds of people, and I don't know, maybe they all are psychopaths, is that non-psychopaths who are acting in a ways that are destructive and harmful to other people, they'll try to obscure it. They will make excuses. They will say like, no, it's this, and they'll try to throw up smoke screens or something. A lot of psychopaths, they don't care, and they're not even necessarily aware of the fact that they're coming. That this is why it's a disorder. Psychopathy is a disorder. It's a personality disorder. And my dog is barking. And they don't know. They see the world through their lens. They don't understand the way everyone else thinks. They don't understand how the world works. That's a disorder. It's extremely self-destructive. People with psychopathy suffer a lot. And if he does have psychopathy, I'm guessing that in Tunisia he ran into some problems too. I don't know that, but that's usually the case. And the way they come across, they just seem oblivious to the way the world actually works, and they seem quite surprised. Like a lot of psychopaths will chronically commit crimes or chronically get into physical altercations, even with police officers sometimes, and they'll just be like, I don't understand why I'm being put in prison for a year. All I did was, and it's just this disconnect that they have. And if you've ever been around a psychopath, you would notice that. You just think like, how do you ever make decisions in your life? But it's because of this personality disorder. They just don't see things the way that other people do. They don't intuit they don't intuit consequences, because to intuit consequences, you have to imagine being in other people's shoes. You have to also know that you're not invincible. You have to understand that there's something to be afraid of. One of the hypotheses about psychopaths is that they lack the same amount of fear that other people have. They actually have a deficit, some sort of brain disorder that causes them to not feel the same amount of fear that other people do. And fear is a very useful emotion. The INS might put me in jail. I'm afraid of that happening, and I will let that guide my behavior. For psychopaths, the information comes in, it doesn't make them afraid, and then they're like, yeah, let's just go for it. And then the bad thing happens, and they're like, how come it's happening? So I don't know if that's what's happening right here, but it's interesting to think about anyway.
The lawyer advised me to don't leave Ohio and to don't be with another woman, but I don't think I have to be stuck in a state because of the immigration. So I think I can go wherever I want.
I think, I know the lawyer who is an expert on U.S. immigration law said all these things, but I think, again, I'm not diagnosing him. I want to be very clear. And please, for the love of God, do not comment on other things saying, Kirk diagnosed him. I hope that you are on my side enough that you would never do that to me, because you do that and then people will take your word for it because it's the freaking internet. And so I want to be clear. I'm not diagnosing. I'm not just saying that as a way of like getting out of something. I literally don't believe that I can diagnose. When I diagnose people with psychopathy or any personality disorder, it'll take me 5 to 10 weeks, maybe longer, of individual sessions where the person actually is being really honest with me and really working in therapy. And only then am I, and then I'm only tentative, because people don't fit neatly into these kinds of boxes all the time.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Mohamed, how you doing? Let me
God.
pop the trunk here for you.
Yeah, man. As you see, I'm running, trying to get out of this state.
The other classic sign of psychopathy is to mooch, actually. A lot of psychopaths will mooch. Another classic sign is that they will mooch by living in your house. They will go from house to house to house and will manipulate people and con people into taking them in. And they might also be extremely charming at the beginning, perhaps at a Walmart when they run into something. I can't say for sure, but there's a lot of possibilities here.
That him and this gal that he is going to meet are truly only friends.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
The other signs of psychopathy are to do something on a reality TV show while you're being filmed and not care about it. The other thing that psychopaths will do a lot is when they're confronted with something, they will not participate. They don't care, again, because of that fear, that lack of fear. When you're a douchebag, shall we say, and you're a non-psychopathic douchebag, and you're pressured into something, there's a bit of an empathy there, and you feel fear of disapproval. You might not exhibit it. You might be, like Angela, for example. Some people might accuse her of lacking empathy. I think she absolutely does have empathy, and I think she has a lot of traumas that she exhibits in her behavior. And when you accuse her of something, she'll get upset. She will come out strong and abuse other people. And because I think she is worried about being shamed by other people, she's worried about being rejected. Psychopaths don't care. And so when you accuse them of something, they'll just be like, well, yeah, whatever, I don't care. And they just won't respond because they're not afraid of not responding. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really do.